Welcome back to Link by Golf. I'm your host Ross McGuire, and this episode is part 2 of my conversation with Gary Wolstenholme, one of the greatest amateur golfers England has ever produced. Before we dive in, a big thank you to TrueLinkswear for supporting the show. Visit truelinkswear.uk for footwear that will truly help you enjoy the walk. You can even DM me on Instagram at linkbygolf2024 for an exclusive podcast discount. In this episode, Gary and I look back at his first amateur championship victory at Ganton, his experiences competing with and against some of the best in the world, including a young Phil Mickelson, and how those moments shaped his incredible amateur career. So let's jump back in with Gary Wolstenholme here on Link by Golf. Welcome back to the podcast, Gary Wolstenholme for episode 2. Gary, thanks for joining. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Always enjoyed talking about the sort of more pleasurable days of golf that I've had.
Yeah, absolutely. And today, I wanted to catch up from last time, Gary. We talked about your start in golf and a lot about your overall journey, how you get into the game, etc. But today, I wanted to dig in more to your amateur championship victories. And the first of those, of course, came at Ganton in 1991. So, what are your memories of that week and how that tournament went for you?
Well, that year had been a good weather year, so generally it had suited my game, a bit of run on the ball, and I just moved up to Bristol at that stage, and that obviously gave me opportunities to play for Gloucestershire, and I had the opportunity to play at Bristol and Clifton, which had a very good practice ground, good practice facilities generally. So, I was playing a lot of golf, playing for England, obviously, having started in '88 officially for England, and I've been successful. So, I was doing well in events, that sort of thing. That year had been going quite well. As I say, the weather helped my game, and I arrived at Ganton, and funnily enough, Scarborough was a place that I had a strong affinity to anyway, because as a child, I think I'd been there something like 6 or 7 times consecutively as a child to go on holiday. So I loved that part of the world, and fortunately, I had the opportunity to stay with a great family, the Moore family, and Peter, who was the father of the friend of mine, caddied for me during the tournament. Now he was a member at Ganton, so I was very fortunate to have that facility, which obviously helps with the way that you relax for the tournaments. But we played Scarborough, Northcliffe, and Ganton, and I played well. I qualified comfortably. The golf courses were set up nicely. Although Scarborough Northcliffe is more of a heathland, more of a parkland course, I suppose, which again suited my game quite nicely. So I wasn't in any fear of missing the cut at that time, and I can remember spending some time with Charlie Banks after the second round, and he was on the cusp of whether he was going to qualify or not. And so we went into Scarborough and we went on the slotties and, bought an ice cream and walked up and down the front, just having a nicely relaxed time. Because I said to him, there is no point in scoreboard watching. It doesn't do you any good. All you do is you get stressed out seeing scores coming in, and there's nothing you can do to affect whether you qualify or not. I think actually in the end he did get in. But fortunately for me, I was in comfortably, so it was just down to the draw. Now, interestingly, with that particular Walker Cup year, it was the last time that they held it just prior to the Amateur Championship, and the American team, pretty much as a whole, played in that Amateur Championship.
Wow.
barring, funnily enough, the only player that didn't stay from the American team from that Walker Cup at Portmarnock was Phil Mickelson.
Right.
He'd gone home because he had sort of commitments, and so he wasn't there, which is a shame, really, because obviously with his reputation now, it would have been rather nice to have had him there as well. But other than him, the other 11 Walker Cup players were all there, and so it was sort of quite exciting to have all the Americans. Sorry, 10. I beg your pardon. There were a 10-man team in those days. So, I look at it and I go, well, really, it was going to be a hard one to do well because the American players were obviously playing a lot of golf, very successful, extremely strong, and hardened match players after a week of Walker Cup golf, etc., where they destroyed the British team pretty much, which is obviously always disappointment. And I can remember, around that period of time, there was a few people saying, well, really, it should be Europe against the United States, a bit like the Ryder Cup had gone. Anyway, that all said, I qualified comfortably. I was in a half of the draw, which surprisingly didn't have any Americans in it, which was quite funny. So that's just the luck of the way it works. But I didn't actually have to play an American until the final.
Right.
And the matches, went well for me. The ball was running. The courses suited me nicely. I was putting great at that stage, and I can remember the greens being some of the fastest that we putted on all year. But the funny thing about it is that I remember playing Wilson Bryson who's a Scot, in the semi-final, and the way that match had panned out sort of gave me a lot of confidence, because a couple of stories from that, which probably almost certainly contributed to my winning that particular game. We got to the let's see, first, second, third, and I'd pulled my tee shot, and I was in a tiny little gorse bush. And I can remember Keith Wright, the secretary of the English Golf Union, coming up to me and said, well, you're not going to like it. So I went over and looked in this bush, and my ball was perched halfway up this tiny little gorse bush, which was, I don't know, probably about that high. But the ball was nestled in the gorse bush. So anyway, I looked at it and I thought, well, if I take a drop or a chip out or whatever, if I could get a club on it, I'm more than likely to lose the hole. So if I'm going to lose the hole, I may as well lose it grandly. And so I got my driver out, and I think everyone at the time, including my opponent and Keith Wright, thought that I was going to take a drop. But oh no. Gary could see that there was nothing behind the ball. There didn't seem to be anything too solid in front of the ball. So I gripped right down to the end of the grip. I had about 50 yards, 60 yards to go. And because the ball was perched quite high up this bush, I thought, well, if I hit this high, it was into the wind. If I hit this high up, way up in the sky, there's a chance that I can actually get it on the green. Anyway, of course, I have a swish. Ball comes out absolutely perfectly, but a little bit of fade on it, and it goes pin high in the bunker on the right hand side. Now, 160 odd yards. It was a bad tee shot, but all of a sudden, I'm back in play. Now, Wilson's hit quite a good tee shot, and he's wedged it, well, a bit more than a wedge, I suppose. He must have been about a 7-iron or something like that onto the green, but about 20 odd feet away. So he putts down to, I don't know, probably 5 foot past. I nearly hold my bunker shot. So I'm in the hole 4, and he's still got to hold a 5-footer, where he'd thought he was going to win the match, win that hole.
Yeah.
And so that was one instance, and then there was another instance on the 7th hole, where I've got into a bunker. Was it 7? Maybe 7 or 8. And I've gone into the bunker on the left-hand side of the green, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, everyone's thinking he's got no chance of getting it anywhere near the flag. Never mind, getting it onto the green was a miracle. And I've played this shot out, and it's come out absolutely perfectly to about 12 feet. And it was a miracle shot. I swear to you, it was a miracle shot. I had 1 foot out of the bunker. I had a steep lip, which was overhanging in front of me. I had to get the ball up really, really quickly and still carry it, sort of, I don't know, 20 yards onto the green, and then hopefully get it to stop on the top plateau, which getting it onto the green, as I say, was a miracle. And I hold the putt. So there were 2 holes where Wilson thought he was going to win the hole and finishes up only halving it. And I think those 2 instances changed the psychology of the game, but also the whole way that the game then went from there. I think it would be interesting to know. He still has nightmares about it, apparently.
Yeah. Well,
Which
he
is quite
definitely,
funny.
I think he only remembers about it every day at the
Well,
moment, rather than
yeah.
10 times a day trying to get to
Well,
Augusta.
because it is not. Well, exactly. I mean, the funny thing about it was I wasn't thinking about Augusta at all at that stage. I was just literally playing my matches as I had done for England, or in the English Amateur or anything else. It's the same thing. It's just the next tournament, next round, and that's the way I've always been. I've not really ever thought about what the consequences are of either winning or losing.
Hmm.
Although obviously afterwards you sort of start to get to think, well, what if you lose, and obviously get excited about the prospects if you win. Anyway, so that all said, I win that match reasonably comfortably in the end. I think it was 3-2. And so I'm in the final, which is obviously a big deal. And I think I'm pretty sure that Bob May, who I finished up playing in the final, beat one of
Was it
the other
Duval?
Americans, David Duval. It was indeed,
Yeah.
who then went on to obviously big things, winning the Open, etc., etc. So. But there was a few people, reporters, etc., saying, well, of course, Gary hasn't had to play any of the Americans, and this is, well, you can only play who you put up against.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, so that all said, I had to play Bob May in the final, and we had a beautiful day, but we had a lot of people watching. I would say probably two and a half thousand people watching our game in the
Wow.
final. The Yorkshire people have come out to support, and I think we were blessed with obviously having that support of the membership as well. And so anyway, I'm very much up for it. Peter's my caddy, which is great. Anyway, we start off, and I don't get off to the best possible start. Let's put it mildly. And I can remember I was 2 down very early on, and I was walking up I think it was the 5th hole, and I was walking behind 2 RNA people who had badges and that sort of thing as officials. Maybe they'd just sort of done refereeing or whatever. Anyway, I had one turn to the other. Literally, they didn't know I was right behind them. And one turned to the other, said, well, that's that then, as though I'd
Wow.
lost. And I thought to myself, hey, hold your horses, we're only on them. the fifth hole
And it's a
here,
36-hole final as well,
and
right?
it's
I mean,
a,
you've
and it's a
plenty of time to come
36-hole
back.
final. And so whether that helped or not, I don't know. But it culminated in me holing about a 15-footer for birdie on the 18th to go 2 up
Wow.
after 18 holes. So anyway, obviously it's lunch. There's about an hour in between the rounds, and I always ate in the car. I didn't want to have the faff of having to queue up and all that sort of stuff. Unbeknownst to me, because of the number of people that had turned up and wanted to have food, Bob had to queue up, and he queued for probably 40 minutes. Had to woof it down.
So they didn't even give the guy in the final any priority in the queue.
No, that was the crux. Now, I was in the car. I had my bowl of cereal, and I was happy, and I was listening to my music, and I played sort of relatively uplifting music, things like Queen and stuff like that, which you know, always the Eye of the Tiger, and those sorts of tunes. We Are the Champions, and all that sort of thing. So I was really revved up. By the time I got to the first tee, I was relatively rested, take my time, eating the right foods for me. And I've always said that had somebody given me a dagger, I'd have just launched it and I'd have murdered him there and then. I was up for this match. So I was in a great frame of mind, stood on the first tee. And it soon became apparent that I was obviously in the ascendancy, and I wasn't tired from having played Walker Cup the week before.
Yeah.
There were lots of perhaps circumstances as to why maybe he lost energy, maybe he hadn't eaten the right things. There was lots of issues perhaps, but I can remember looking at the scoreboards afterwards, and I had, from the 9th in the morning till the 10th in the afternoon, I had shot 66 with a double bogey.
Wow. What a score that is.
So was it any wonder that I finished up winning 8 and 6?
Yeah, of course.
And actually, funnily enough, on that, I think it was obviously the 13th. I could have made birdie on that hole as well, but I just played out of my skin, and I look back on it now, and it was really only once we got a buggy, or I got a buggy back to the clubhouse, and it hit me that I was going to go to Augusta, so I got all giggly, as you do, and it is undoubtedly the greatest prize in amateur golf to be invited to go to the Masters. They've
Absolutely.
obviously spread it around a little bit. I think the Asia Pacific champion gets an invite. Obviously, they had the 2 finalists from the amateur championship, the US amateur championship, and then there was the mid amateur champion from the US as well, and then myself. And it really wasn't until we were driving back to the clubhouse that it sort of struck me as to the enormity of what I'd achieved. I mean, yes, I was playing for England at that stage and had done since May '88. And with obviously some success, I'd been winning some tournaments, and that all contributed to, I suppose, the confidence that I took into virtually every match, to the extent where, I've been told that no one really wanted to play me, because they didn't want to lose to me, because they all felt that really they should be beating me, and yet finished up losing, because I wasn't a big hitter, I wasn't a spectacular hitter, but I got the job done. I was incredibly competitive around the greens, and that gave me an edge against an awful lot of what would be regarded as better hitters, better strikers, who look more impressive. But when it comes down to match play, and stroke play and match play are, I suppose, inherently very different, except I play match play like stroke play. So in other words, I'm trying to shoot the lowest score I possibly can every single hole, to get as good a score as I can at the end of 18 holes. And whether it's match play or stroke play, I always do the same thing. It's not that I have a particular plan or that I'm going to be making doubles and trebles, although, as I mentioned to you, I did make a double. But, you know, the fact is that I was always going to be hard to beat if I can get myself into contention in a final, because I handled that pressure better than most. Hence why England used me either off last or off first
Right.
in the matches. So I was the
Makes
anchor
sense.
man, and it sometimes came down to my match as to whether I won. Obviously, Walker Cup in '95, classic example of exactly that. So winning that one certainly gave me credibility. And you know, when I look back as the second one that I won, it was 12 years later. That just doesn't happen. No
Yeah.
one has a 12-year split. It's a record as and I would think probably first to last. I don't think there's any country where you would have a winner lasting that long.
And you,
So
your second
again,
one, Gary, so that was 2003 at Troon?
2003 at Royal Troon, yes.
And what were the courses for the qualifying for that, for the stroke play part as well?
Now, I knew you were going to ask me that. It was Royal Troon, and I'm gonna.
Was it Barassi?
I think. Well, I was going to say Kilmarnock Barassi. It doesn't stand out hugely, only because I remember so much about Troon rather than
Yeah.
the other qualifying course. I think I had a decent score on both. But interestingly, the weather had been quite tricky, and I was again playing great. The England coaches that were up at Troon for that particular one, and basically it was felt that I was playing probably the best I've ever played at that stage, and I'd had this spell where all sorts of statistics were coming out about how accurate I was off the tee, and my successes of handicap. I was plus 5.5 when that wasn't the thing. I can remember a few years prior to me getting to that handicap, Sir Michael Benalek had commented on the way that handicaps were going. And you look at it and you go, well, he actually said there's no way anybody should be off +4 because no one goes round in 4 under par every time. But of course, it didn't need to. We had variable standard scratch on the overall
Yeah.
scores. But plus 5.5, I think, was the lowest in the world at that stage. I finished that season at plus 5.3. And these sorts of things build your confidence because people are going and telling you that you're the most accurate player in the world at 89.7% fairways. And sometimes I said, well, I wasn't on the fairway, but it was what I was trying to do to give myself either a shorter shot into the green, or perhaps give me perhaps an opportunity to reach the par 5 or whatever. So you could actually say I was more accurate than even that. But of all the tours in the world that were doing statistical analysis, I was the straightest in the world at that
Wow.
time, according to the English Golf Union. So again, all these things help build you up. And obviously in 2003, I've been breaking records as far as caps were concerned. And
so you'd already broken the English record for the caps at that point.
I'm pretty sure I did. Peter McAvoy had 153 and I finished up with 218. So in beginning of 2008 was when I finished playing for England. I would have been, if I hadn't broken it at that stage, it would have been very close.
Yeah.
I would have suggested that I did break it before that. I think I got to 200 caps. Well, certainly not long after that. Anyway, so these confidence aspects. I fortunately I had an instance in that qualifying, because I played Royal Troon second round. And I can remember I was going really nicely, really nicely, thinking I'm going to qualify fairly comfortably here. And we get to, I think it's 16. And it's a par 5. And it's down, it's running, everything else. And there was a stream going across the fairway at something like virtually 280, not far off the back tee. So I think, right, I'm just going to hit 5 wood off the tee, downwind. So I hit 5 wood and hit it really well. So I'm thinking that's fine. Get up there and it's gone into the stream. So I've hit it miles. So it's obviously got a good run, good bounce, and then so I'm now thinking, well, okay, don't worry, can still reach the green. I put it into a greenside trap, and I don't think I get up and down, annoyingly. So I make bogey on the hole.
Not like you, Gary.
So I really, really should have made birdie. But anyway, that's all said. Make par on the next, come to the final hole. And I found the fairway, which is a decent thing to do under the circumstances. And I'm thinking, right, all I'm going to do is just pitch a sort of a 3/4 4-iron and pitch it short of the green and let it just run onto the green. Hit this shot and it runs, and it goes through the green. I've hit it too well, obviously. And it's at the bank at the back. Well, the bank at the back, the next stop is out of bounds.
Wow, so you almost had it
So
out.
I am probably, I'm going to go with 2.5 feet from being out of bounds.
My goodness.
So there's fate, whatever you want to do. I get up and down. So instead of taking 6, I take 4. But it could have been worse, and I might not have made the cut. I think I made the cut by either 1 or 2 shots. So it literally, it could have been all over there, just through hitting a fairway, then playing what I thought was conservatively to make sure I made my par, and that nearly made, obviously, a catastrophic error. But interestingly, I don't think I played a player from through the remaining matches. I don't think I played anybody from the same country twice. So in other words, I didn't play 2 Englishmen, I didn't play 2 Scots. I played a different nationality every single round, which again shows the cosmopolitan aspect of the Amateur Championship, which it is undoubtedly the most cosmopolitan championship in the world. There is no other championship that has so many different nationalities competing. And, that's a strong indictment as to, the R&A and obviously the prize that it gives of a chance to play in the Open Championship and obviously the Masters. If you're English, you might get a few other pro events to play as well. But as I progressed, I was progressing well. The rough was tough. The ball was running. And although the weather wasn't particularly brilliant, in fact, I can remember having to wear waterproofs in the final. Not that it particularly rained, but it was inclement, let's say. and I had to play a young Swiss international, Rafael de Sousa, who was big hitter, but obviously finished up hitting iron off virtually all the tees, because he was that long and the ball was running, and he didn't want to miss the fairways. And it's funny that again the first 18 was incredibly nip and tuck, and I made an inspired up and down on about the 15th, where again I was in a bunker left. My back was sore that week, for obviously the amount of golf I was playing, hitting a lot of balls, and I needed to be able to sort of nurse myself. And actually, it got to a stage where I was wondering whether I was going to be able to continue the match. Obviously, a couple of painkillers obviously helps, but I can remember standing in this bunker on the left, and he was on the green and expecting to win the hole and to go one up. And I played again with a great deal of difficulty, a sort of a miracle bunker shot onto the green and get it to probably about 15 feet and hold it for a par. And that, again, that moment, I think, changed the whole complexion. He then lost a couple of holes towards the end. And, again, it just gave me the impetus. And I won something like 7 and 6. So I've actually won both my
7-6. Wow.
I won both my finals by decent strong margins. And I was by the end, obviously I was mentally and physically stronger because of the way that I was actually striking the ball. Started to strike it better because I was swinging easier. Maybe it's beware the injured golfer, the old adage, and that obviously gave me. It was funny because the BBC were covering that particular amateur.
Oh, they covered that one.
Yeah,
Excellent.
they covered that one, and I've actually got the videos, which, funnily enough, I've just got back off a friend of mine. So I've got a homemade video of Ganton, which was made by my coach at the time, a guy called Brian Mudge, who was at Staverton Park. And he came up and he got his video camera and took some video, which is actually brilliant because there's some fantastic little pieces where you can hear people's comments, which is quite funny. And then obviously BBC then covered the amateur, which was part of their deal of staging the or covering the Open Championship at that time.
Right.
And so I got these two, great videos, if you like, which I must get on digitized because they will be for posterity nice things to have. So I remember Andrew Cotter interviewing my mother, which we watched afterwards when it was shown, obviously highlights.
Must have been one of Andrew's early jobs, actually.
It probably was. And my mother turned to me. She says, "I don't talk like that, do I?" And I went, "Yes, you do." Because she said, "I hope my son's going to do well this week." It's so funny. So we had a laugh, but she'd come to watch me, and my uncle had obviously gone with her. So quite a long way to go for her from Monmouth in Wales. So yes, it was a nice thing to do. And anyway, so lots of nice memories. But Troon, the back nine at Troon, is one of the greatest tests of golf. And I can remember when the Open was last there, and obviously Xander Schauffele won, beat Justin Rose, who's he's a hero of mine. But I thought Justin was incredibly unlucky not to win the Open there, and I think Schauffele was perhaps somewhat fortunate. If you watch how it transpired on the back nine in particular, there was a couple of moments where you thought, well, bounces go one way or the other, and it's a sliding doors moment. But anyway, it is the most wonderful test of golf. The back nine in particular is
The back
really
nine just,
challenging.
yeah, it
It,
looks so difficult. It's got to be
it
one of the
is.
hardest back
It's
nines
it's
anywhere.
tight. It's very tight. You've got to chip and putt well, and depending on the direction of the wind, of course, it's brutal. It is brutal, but you can understand why a lot of people rate Troon as an Open Championship venue. The only problem is there's a sort of a catch point in the middle of the front nine where, or towards the end, that means that spectators are sort of slightly hemmed in. But it's a wonderful course. So for me to win at two of the better courses in Great Britain, it is incredibly pleasing to me, and also um, just wonderful to have won at two great venues like that. And I've been close in other amateur finals. The one that I've usually won when I've got to a final, but I lost to Paul Casey in the English Amateur at Royal Lytham and St Anne's, and that was the one that I really wanted to win, because my father had won the English Amateur at Royal Lytham and St Anne's, so the
Wow.
synergy would have been incredible. And I can remember being 4 down at lunch, and I battled back to 1 down, and Paul Casey had done some miracle up and downing to stay 1 down, and then unfortunately come to those last 5 holes, and I just didn't play them particularly well again, and finished up losing to him, which, all credit to Paul. He's a wonderful player.
I'd like to thank Oliver Wilson and True Linkswear UK for sponsoring the show. Let's hear from Ollie now.
The OG3 Pro is the natural evolution of the OG range. We have a wide toe box that allows your foot to work naturally in your toes display. We have a cushioned zero drop platform. It's flexible, minimalist to allow you to feel the ground. It's waterproof and an aggressive spikeless outsole. And of course, it's tour tested.
And one of the best players that never actually, funnily enough, played for England. He played Walker Cup, but not for England, which is quite
He never played for England?
Yeah.
What?
That's an interesting stat that you could throw somebody's way. But he played Walker Cup and didn't play for England. But he was at college in the States, so he never really got the opportunity to play for England, if you know what I mean.
That's incredible that he could play in the Walker Cup but never play for England. Sounds the wrong way round.
Yeah, it does seem the wrong way round. But he and Luke Donald obviously won every match. They played 2 foursomes and they both won their singles both days. So it made a huge dent in the Americans' armour, and obviously one of the reasons why we won by a record margin in the end. But Peter McAvoy was probably instigational in Paul being selected. But going back to that final, that's probably the only final I've lost. So I've won the the New South Wales match play against one of the best New South Wales players, which was the centenary match play. And I got a lot of Australian pros who knew my father very well, because he based himself in Melbourne, and they were wanting me to win as well, which is quite funny, really. But that was another final that I was fortunately able to win. So, I look at it and I go, well, I must have done something right in my career, because I seem to be pretty good at finishing tournaments off. And, when I consider that, all the events I've played, I've won over 70 events worldwide. So, I won the South African match play. The South African stroke player, beg your pardon. So, things like that obviously helped my cause to survive as long as I did in the amateur game.
Well, the other part that we didn't talk about just yet today that I'd love to dig into is your Augusta experiences, because you won the amateur championship. So what was it like that first time? Obviously you got the invite, but just describe for the listeners what it was like to start preparing for Augusta and what you might face, and then what it was like to get there on the grounds.
Well, I was living in Bristol at that stage, and having won, I know it sounds silly, but I was actually practicing on the linoleum floor in the kitchen, um, uh, putting.
Makes
And
sense. Makes a
well,
lot of sense.
it actually it did make sense because I had to control the backswing of, or the takeaway of the putter, to make sure I got the ball starting on line, and then trying to get it so that it barely touched the skirting board of the other end of the kitchen. Fortunately, it was a long sort of galley style kitchen, and it gave me a good feel for speed and super fast greens, which actually in the end worked out to be really important. But I mean, I could literally talk for hours about what happened at Augusta, so I'll try not to overextend this. But obviously, I was lucky to be able to get out to Augusta. I was lucky that I was able to get an incredibly cheap business class flight through a friend of mine. And so I went out business class on Delta, which was fantastic. First time I'd ever been to America, never been to America prior to that. Um, and just getting the opportunity I played the Golf Club of Georgia, and a number of other great courses in that area. Atlanta Athletic Club, and I think I played Peachtree as well. So these are wonderful, wonderful golf courses. And then, of course, I was lucky enough to have a friend who married an Augusta girl, and her parents said, "Yeah, I could go and stay." So they came out as well. I stayed in their
Fantastic.
house in Martinez, which is not far away from Augusta. So obviously, I arrived at Augusta National in my hire car, and it was quite funny because obviously I wanted to drive really slowly. So I got down Washington Road and I arrived at the front gate on the Saturday. Actually, it might have even been Friday. So I sort of arrive at the gate, and there's the guard there, and he says, "Yes, how can I help you?" And I said, "Well, I'm one of the competitors who arrived a bit early." "Oh, yes, sir." So I give him a name, and then I drove down Washington Road, drove down Magnolia Way, and on the right hand side at that stage was used to be the practice ground. You got this wonderful tunnel of bushes and shrubs that you drive down, and it's a tunnel with this sort of light at the end of the tunnel, and it's this roundabout which is very eclectic because obviously America in those days didn't have many roundabouts, but it's got the Augusta National logo on in flowers with a flag and everything else, and then you've got this beautiful sort of colonial white clubhouse, which is immaculate. I can't tell you, it's immaculate. And so I go down, I sign in, number 2 badge. So number 1 is always reserved for the previous year's winner,
Right.
and I got number 2 badge. So I was second on the list, and I picked up my Cadillac Eldorado, which was a white Cadillac with red leather seats and electric everything. Now, to give you some idea, I think my car at the time was a Vauxhall Astra. So let me tell you,
Not quite the same.
I was pretty proud of this car, and it's got the Augusta logo on the side. And anyway,
Oh, wow.
and apparently they auction those cars off, or they used to. I don't think they do it anymore. I think they're just sort of they're lent a car these days. But anyway, so I had a Cadillac Eldorado to drive, and it was just a bit of a dream, really. I hit a few shots. Um, and the interesting thing is you start hitting balls and you don't really want to scuff the turf because it's that pristine. But but eventually I said, right, you've got to take a divot here because this is ridiculous. Take a divot, and it's green. The soil's green.
What?
So they've obviously, they've got a sand seed soil mix, and they colour it green. So even the soil is green, which is hilariously funny. So I'm thinking, right, well, I better go out and have a practice. So I borrow one of the local caddies, and his name was Washington, and he's one of the black caddies that worked at the club at that stage. Brilliant guy. God, there was nothing he didn't know about the golf course. And I was actually thinking to myself, my boss is caddying for me.
Yeah.
From the solicitor's practice where I was working. And he said, yeah, you can go to Augusta, no problem at all, but I've got to caddy for you. So I've gone, well, yeah, fine. I mean, he was a very good player. He was playing for Gloucester and scratch player, so it wasn't an issue. But he wasn't turning up straight away. So anyway, so I go out with Washington. We do the par 3 tournament at the course, which was amazing. As well, and we have a round of golf, and he's telling me all the little sort of tricks and things that you need to look at, but it was immaculate. Now this is in the day when they used to cross cut the fairways, and they used to have like a sort of Red Arrows aerobatic team of mowers going and mowing, and they were mowing in sort of unison. It was immaculate. There was not a weed. It was beautiful to look at. It was beautiful. Not like now where it's groomed from green to tea, so it all looks dark green, and it's nowhere near as pretty. But oh my God, that golf course was just beautiful. It was a work of art to look at. And it was just inspirational. I mean, I loved fast greens anyway. And the golf course was only about 7,000 yards long in those days. I mean, it's obviously significantly. The time when I played it the second time, it was 7,400 and a bit, and at the time it was only 7,000 and a bit. So it in the 12 years, it's a well. Don't forget, it's 12 years. But even so, massive jump. And the way that they'd also groomed the fairways made a massive difference too. So anyway, out I go, and I've loved every minute of it. Absolutely. There was one interesting thing where he said, let me take a picture of you. And of course, in those days, we didn't have mobile phones, etc. But he said, right, the big trick is we stick 2 tees and then rest underneath the lip of the hole. And then we rest the ball on the tees. And then I'll take a picture, and it looks as though you've just literally, I've caught it just as you've holed the putt.
Brilliant.
So you can then move, and I've never forgotten it ever. So I had the most magical time. I wasn't going to stay in the Crow's Nest, and the reason being is that it was a 6-bed dormitory in the roof of the clubhouse, with no air conditioning that I could see anyway, and it was 6-foot partitions and single beds. And I just thought to myself, why would I, want to stay there with the hubbub of what's going on, when I can have a much more relaxed and use my car, which I loved. There was no real reason for me. And Sir Michael Banach actually had a go at me the second time when he said, are you staying in the Crow's Nest? I said, no, I'm not, no. And he said, why not? And I said, well, and he said, well, Bill Gates and I both stayed in there. And I'd gone, well, yeah, but it's, me, first of all, getting all my gear, which I travel heavy, getting all my gear up this incredibly steep staircase to get it up there in the first place I'd have been knackered. But to be in a dormitory just didn't appeal to me at all. Now, I'm sure it's a lot better now, and there's air conditioning, and it didn't even seem as though there were any curtains around the windows in the actual top of the Crow's Nest, which would have been no good to me either. I wake up at the tiniest bit of light, so it wouldn't have been any good to me. But obviously Augusta were incredibly kind, and literally you feel spoiled. It's an incredible place. And I would say if there was one thing that I would love to do now is to actually go back again. And I did inquire, having heard that previous US amateur champions can play the par 3 course after to be part of the celebration of the Masters. Whether that's still true or not, I don't know. But I did ask about going back, and obviously it wasn't possible, sadly, barring obviously going to pay. But it was one of the reasons why I desperately wanted to win the amateur again, which thank goodness I did, to be able to go back. But the funny thing about it was that even though having sort of achieved that, it flashes by. And although I tried very hard to maximize it, I think you almost need 3 goes to do it right. The second time I hired a house and I had 8 guys in there, and was it ideal? No, it wasn't. But it was still fun, but it was different, and I didn't really do it as well as I should have done. And my game was good, but not great. And should I have had a local caddy? Well, yes, possibly. I always used to take people to, whether it was the Open Championship or the Amateur Championship, to give them an experience as much as me enjoying it for what it is, instead of being selfish and saying, right, I want to do well. And I think that's possibly because I hadn't intended turning professional. So I just wanted to enjoy it with other people and spread the love to a certain extent. But they used to be an international players dinner, which Gary Player hosted. It's not done anymore, sadly. There were a couple of people. I think David Frost didn't turn up and somebody else didn't turn up, which Player did highlight. But that was a great experience to be there with Sevi and Woozy and Langer and all these other guys. Fantastic experience to do that. And then obviously we had the amateur player dinner, and you were guest of honor with the US amateur champion, who was a guy called Mitch Voges, and we're sat at the top table with all the sort of the good and the great of amateur golf, and so it was just a fairy tale, really, for me, and it to me is the greatest experience that I'll ever have in golf. That first time. I was there. I had an amazing number of experiences, which, I can't relate to you now because it would take me another 3 hours. I couldn't fit it all in, but to sort of cut it into a nutshell, a lot happened in that first day of the first round, where I was drawn with Arnold Palmer, and in those days it was just 2 ball. And you then got redrawn after the first round, whereas now it's 3 balls, and you know your start times and everything else. But I was drawn with Arnold Palmer, and
what a draw that is! Wow.
Well, again, I talk about the experience of that first day. I had a box of new metal woods arrive from, I think they were called Gear for Golf or something like that, and it's when metals weren't really at the sort of that popular, although they were becoming incredibly popular, obviously. But and the box arrived on the Thursday, so it was given to me, and I said to David, my caddy, bring the box, and well, I'll give them a bit of a swish. Anyway, he sort of shook his head and brought them with me, and we got on the practice ground, and I started hitting shots, and all of a sudden I feel a presence behind me, and I look around, it's Sevi. And he stood there watching me hit shots, 7-irons. And he just said to me, Gary, you're going to have a great day. You're swinging it well, striking it great. Good luck.
Wow.
Well, of course, I felt 50 foot tall, didn't I? Sevi, my absolute hero, stands behind me and tells me I'm going to have a good day. So, right, good. So I finished off my practice and I said, right, come on, let's try these woods. And I hit probably 2 or 3 with the fairway woods, and then 2 or 3 with the driver, and I get this little baby draw with the driver. So I said, right, we're going to put these in the bag.
As you
They'd
do.
literally arrived that day. Hadn't hit any other shots other than just on. And David, my caddy, goes, "Don't be stupid. You can't do that." And I said, "No, I'm getting a baby draw. It's perfect. This golf course needs a draw, etc., etc." So right, so they've gone in the bag. David's thinking I'm absolutely bonkers. So I've then gone on the putting green and I've practiced for a good 25 minutes, 30 minutes. And I'm putting fantastically, and I'm a good putter, and I love fast greens. So anyway, right. So I thought, right, next thing, I'm playing with Arnold Palmer. It's going to be quite an experience. I'll go down onto the first tee and I'll stand at the back of the first tee and just soak it all up and get a feel for what it's about. Now, Peter Ellis, who's my godfather, or was my godfather, had given me some wonderful advice. He said, when you're on the first tee, you're going to be nervous. I defy anybody not to be nervous on the first tee at Augusta National, particularly the first time they're going to play there. And he said, what I want you to feel is as though you're swinging as slow with your backswing as you possibly can. Now, you won't be swinging slow, but that's the feeling you've got to get. So I've gone, oh, right, okay, well, so anyway, I managed to get through the crowds. People are going, and I'm going, no, I'm actually playing in the tournament, which is quite funny. They see the badge, so right. Anyway, so I get onto the first tee and I go up to the starter, who's a lovely old chap. So this is all right if I manage to, just creep in at the back here and get a feel for the conditions and what it's all about. So I said, oh yeah, no problem at all. You stand up here with me at the back of the tee. So anyway, if somebody had said, I'll give you £1 million if you can remember who teed off in front of you in that group, I couldn't possibly tell you. I was taking it all in. I was looking left, looking right, looking down to the 12th, green, 13th tee, which you can see from off the first tee as it was then. Huge swathe of grass on the left-hand side, which is where the members used to use as their warm-up range. So they'd hit a couple of shots and then go on to the first tee. Huge expanse of grass. Big elevation change going down to the 12th, probably 250 feet, I would think. It's got to be at least that. Wow. It's a big drop. Anyway, so I'm stood there, and all of a sudden you can hear anytime somebody famous comes to a part of the golf course where you're stood, you hear this hubbub where people are obviously turning to each other and going, oh, it's Arnold Palmer, Arnold Palmer. Anyway, all of a sudden, huge cheer. Arnold Palmer comes onto the first tee. And I would say that probably round that first tee, there's 2,500 people.
My goodness.
Of which we had, I would suggest, conservatively speaking, 1,200 people following just our game. Now, every hole has people sat there or stood on the fairways, but we had people actually following our particular match. Unfortunately, it probably wasn't anything to do with me, although there were a few Brits there. It was more to do with obviously Arnold Palmer. But anyway, so age 63, walks on, very vital, very strong man. Hand up there, waving to the crowds, huge applause. And so anyway, the starter greets Mr. Palmer and he said, Mr. Palmer, I've been waiting all my life to do this. And Arnold turns to me, he said, well, I'm glad we both made it. Because this guy must have been 80. Anyway, so, right, 4 please, Arnold Palmer on the tee. And so Arnold Palmer, age 63, with a steel shafted persimmon-headed driver, smashes it 293 yards straight down the middle. Absolutely killed it. Crowd go bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. Well, I'm stood at the back. And I'm loving this, smiling away to myself. Oh, this is wonderful. All of a sudden, it all sort of dies down. Oh, shit, it's my turn. Excuse the language. It's my turn. So I sort of walk over to David, my caddy, and he hands me the driver. And I swear to you now, his comment was, for God's sake, don't miss it.
Top caddy.
Ha, ha, ha. And I'm thinking, well, it had never occurred to me till that moment that I might even miss it at all. So anyway, I've managed
No
to get
surprise
the
Dave's not caddying on tour with that comment.
well, it would go down well with certain people, I know that. But anyway, so I managed to get the ball on the tee, which is good. And I tried to think about what Peter told me to do. But in the blur of the moment, all of a sudden, I see this ball rocketing down the fairway. I hit 270. Now, I can't hit the ball 270, but the adrenaline of the moment, because it's just sort of a bit of a rise, and anyway, I hit 270. I literally, with the adrenaline or whatever you want to call it, I was running off the tee until I realised, what the hell are you doing? You've left your playing partners, caddies, all the people back on the tee. So I had to physically stop myself at the end of the tee before we started to go down to wait for everybody to catch up, because I was. Well, again, it's one of those moments. I'm an extrovert anyway, so I enjoyed the fact of playing in front of crowds, and so wonderful opportunity down on the fairway, great, and I've got a 5-iron into the green. So I hit this 5-iron and I'm thinking, oh, that's really good. And actually, it might have even been a bit less than that. I think on reflection, it might have even been a 7-iron, because I'd hit a really good drive and the pin was sort of, mid of the green. Anyway, I left it, whatever club I used, I left it 20 feet short, and I couldn't believe that it'd come up short. But I thought, uphill putt, no problem. It's not an issue. I'm putting great, might even hole it. Arnold Palmer hits his about 15 feet past the flag. So his is a really good shot, 9-iron, something like that. So anyway, we get up on the green. I putt up. Oh, it's just going to miss left. Anyway, it's not a problem. Tap in, make 4. Goes 6 foot past. I'm going, what? There's no way. I am so dialed in with the greens. I can't believe that. I find out afterwards they triple free key the first green. So
Just
the green
to spook you out a little bit.
to spook you out. And it actually, I couldn't believe it. So I've gone 6 foot past, downhill left to righter. Well, needless to say, what do? I miss it. So I've started with a 3-putt. Arnold Palmer knocks his 4 foot past and he misses his return. He 3-putts as well. So we stalked to the second, and the second's a par 5. So unfortunately, it was, because it gave us some breathing time, because the group in front were waiting for the green. Mr. Palmer was obviously going to hit first. So we had to wait. And the tableau was me stood at the back of the tee, Mr. Palmer stood at the front of the tee, and the caddies obviously stood at the side. I'm thinking, oh, please don't let me shoot 100. Mr. Palmer is thinking, you could have this bubble. Mr. Palmer's thinking, why do they always give me an amateur? And my caddy's thinking, I could be back in the office making thousands of pounds, and I'm here watching, my player shooting whatever. Anyway, so that was the tableau. Fortunately, as I say, we had a bit of time just to collect our thoughts. Anyway, come down second hole, and this is I am going to sort of speed this up, because obviously I realise we're short on time. But to cut a long story short, I birdied the second and the third. Par 4, par 5, par 6, birdie 7, birdie 8.
Wow.
Hit a great drive down 9, just a little bit too far left. Now I'm having to hit a 4-iron into 9, where a lot of these guys these days are hitting 9-irons or pitching wedges, or even less.
Absolutely.
And I just go through to the back edge, and the pin's halfway down on the left-hand side, well, the right-hand side, as you're looking at it from the proper, from the fairway. And I literally, it's marble staircase time. And Palmer's left his just short. Mr. Palmer, I should say, has left his just short. Putting uphill about, I don't know, 15 feet, something like that. Good shot in 12 feet. And I've got this shot literally chipping straight down the green, and I play a miracle shot to about 3 feet. Palmer as we've crossed, says, "Great shot. That you don't know how good that is." And I said, I really do, because that was swift. Anyway, Palmer misses his putt. I've got to then make this 3-footer, and I'm saying to myself, please don't miss it, please don't miss it. Anyway, fortunately, it goes in, and some wag in the crowd shouts, "Don't look at the leaderboard." Well, what do you do?
What's the first thing you do?
First thing you do is you look at the leaderboard, because the leaderboard is right there. It's huge. And I've got a photograph of the leaderboard. I'm leading the US Masters.
Wow.
I'm tied leader, but that doesn't matter. I was leading the Masters after 9 holes.
There you go.
So another claim to fame. But I have an up and down back 9 where unfortunately I bogeyed the last, having got back to 1 under par, having chipped in for birdie on the 17th. And again, Mr. Palmer comes up. He was just the most wonderful man to play with. He was supportive. If he had a good shot, he said, "Good shot." We chatted a little bit on the way round. He was fantastic to play with. A real gentleman, a genuinely good guy to play with. And unfortunately, I bogeyed the last, as I say, which again, it would have been easier perhaps to have parred it, but anyway, I didn't. But to finish level par was top 30, I think, at that stage, 30 something. So good chance of making the cut. And I was interviewed for probably an hour and a quarter afterwards. They didn't really have a media centre in those days, and I sat underneath the big tree outside the clubhouse with probably 15, 20 reporters, asking me questions, and what was it like to play with Palmer, and what did you think about this, and how do you feel your chances are going forwards. But that's probably the best day's golf I've ever had in my life, and I still love remembering it and recounting some of the stories, and I've literally just touched the surface. So much went on that day and also that week, it's a speech in itself, and I often recount it as a story, from start to finish, from obviously winning the amateur to obviously finishing the tournament. It's just, I can't tell you, anybody who loves golf has to go to Augusta National at least once in their life. It's like going to Mecca. It's a religious experience for golfers. You go there and it is just awe-inspiring. I defy anybody to go to Augusta and not feel as though they want to go out and start playing even better golf. But it's just an amazing place, and it's one of the greatest prizes anybody will ever get. And I'm sure that virtually every amateur that ever goes there says the same thing.
Absolutely.
So yes, Augusta was amazing. And as I say, part of my career it's a shame I didn't make the cut, because Peter McAvoy was the last British amateur ever to make the cut. In about 1978.
Yeah.
So, but he had another claim to fame. He actually was leading the Open Championship with 9 holes to play, and finished 10th, as it turned out. But that was quite something. He was a wonderful player. So when you consider the number of caps that I got, Sir Michael Benalek had 131. Peter McAvoy had 153, and I had 218. So they're the top 3 number of caps, players with caps. So it's quite a nice thing to be in the same, or mentioned in the same breath as those 2 guys.
Absolutely. So I think that's a perfect place to wrap up this episode, Gary. And in the next one, we'll start talking about the Walker Cup. And you're sure you'll get some amazing memories from there. But for today,
Well,
Thanks so much.
again, I'm lucky to be on 6 teams, so yeah, plenty to talk about.
Absolutely. Thanks again. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
That's part 2 wrapped with Gary Wolstenholme. And what an amazing look back at the early 90s, his amateur championship win at Ganton, and a mindset that defined success. Massive thanks again to Gary for joining us. If you haven't already, make sure to go back and listen to part 1, and don't miss part 3 where Gary and I get into his Walker Cup experiences and stories from life representing GB&I. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a golfing friend, leave a quick review, and follow us on Instagram at LinkByGolf2024 for more behind the scenes clips and upcoming guests. I'm Ross McGuire. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, stay linked by golf.
Lomond Golf Tours have helped thousands of guests build bespoke golf trips to create a magical experience. Travel in style with our executive chauffeur travel, whether it's golf on a major championship venue or one of our hidden gems, 5-star accommodation or a boutique bed and breakfast, or is it whiskey tasting on a private boat? Lomond Golf Tours are here to help build the tour of a lifetime. Whether you're celebrating a special occasion or ticking it off your bucket list, embark on a trip that you'll remember forever. To learn more about our offerings for 2025 and beyond, visit www.lomondgolftours.com.